Hey, soccer fans. Welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I am your host, Nick, and in this episode, we are looking at the Conference of Chaos. We are looking at the Eastern Conference first round upsets in the 2024 MLS Cup Playoffs. I'm sure you all have heard by now that Atlanta United, the wildcard team, the 9 seed, stunned Inter Miami in their 3-game series. We're going to talk about the reactions. We're going to talk about the reactions to the reactions and look at the MLS Cup Playoffs as a whole. Also, at the end of the show, we're going to take a look at the USMNT roster as they call their November training camp in preparation for their Nations League quarterfinal matchup against Jamaica. So stay tuned for all of that and more. But first, I do want to start the show a little Chicago Fire related news here. There's still stuff going on in the offseason. I was able to take advantage of the first of my Fire 365 perks for being a season ticket holder. And it's something new that the Chicago Fire started this year for season ticket members. You get this Fire 365 program. It's part of your season ticket membership, but you get to pick which of the 4 different kinds of Fire 365 perks you're going to receive. There's one for diehard fans. There's one for corporate ticket memberships. There's the social package, and then the one that I chose, the family package. Now, for example, if you pick the diehard, say you're the supporter, you go every game, you're in the supporter section, you go to the tailgates, you go to the airport to welcome the new signings, you're around town looking for murals and all that other stuff. If you're a Chicago Fire diehard, you get, as was indicated in the prior mailer, a VIP tour of the Performance Center is part of that package. You have unique opportunities to access front office and player appearances. If you select the corporate package, then you get sponsorship, business opportunities, opportunities to buy suites and VIP packages or attend events with Joe Mansueto. I would assume that nobody can just pick the corporate package, that you actually have to be tied to some sort of corporate arrangement or corporate sponsorship, marketing team, whatever it is. Maybe I should have just put down like my old law firm when I was a solo attorney, Pateris Law. Maybe I should have done that. I don't know. But anyway, the other social aspect of it, for people who use the Chicago Fire and MLS as kind of a social gathering, as the hangout. They have pre- and post-match parties, private events at local breweries, things of that nature. But for me, the family package, that's the biggest reason why I bought my season ticket membership, was to enjoy a bunch of these games with my kids, with my wife, with my cousins, friends. I'm able to roll over some of my tickets from one game so that way I can have twice as many the next game and invite more people. That's what I've really liked. And so I selected the family package. And what comes with the family package? It says create new traditions with your kids, both at Soldier Field and other non-match day events, including members-only offers at top Chicago attractions and an annual opportunity to take a festive holiday photo with Sparky. So that's what we did. We went over to the Fire pitch this weekend. They had one area completely set up with holiday decorations, Christmas trees, a nice red bench, a bunch of MLS-themed presents under the tree and soccer balls around, a little snow. So we all showed up in our Fire jerseys and scarves, and there was Sparky right there. And we got to take a bunch of pictures with him. And what was nice is they staggered the time slots, and you pre-registered for it. So we had about 10-15 minutes just to ourselves. The other families who had previously taken their photos were off enjoying the hot chocolate bar and the Christmas movies, maybe the Bears game if you want to call that an enjoyable experience. They did have that on. But we had our own time with Sparky, and it was really nice. And my youngest son, we even asked him, do you want to take a special picture? He's like, yeah, can I pretend that I'm shooting on Sparky? So Sparky got down to lay out like he was playing keeper, and my son was trying to juke him. We got a couple of fun pictures of that. So it was a good time. I like what they're doing with this Fire 365 package. It's a customizable, not a customizable season ticket perk, and just something a little extra that the club can offer. So that was a lot of fun, and yeah, I even put on social media. We got a little wooden soccer ball ornament with the Fire logo, and my wife is just thrilled, let me tell you, about our new Chicago Fire ornament that now has to go on her wonderful, beautifully decorated Christmas tree. Also, I want to follow up on something we talked about in our last episode about Jim Curtin being fired as the Union head coach. It turns out, despite my speculation, Jim Curtin had no idea that he was going to be fired. I said, he's got to know this is coming. When you make a move like this, when you underperform and you're fired for it, you got to know it's coming, right? Or there has to be some conversations. Well, it turns out he had no idea. And go find articles by Charles Boehm on MLSsoccer.com and Jeff Carlisle on ESPN.com. They have detailed all of what occurred since the end of the Philly season to the firing of Jim Curtin and all the precursors that led up to it. The crazy thing is the team owner, Jay Sugarman, said that the decision to fire Jim Curtin was that of sporting director Ernst Tanner. And he just kind of touched on that Ernst had said, we can't achieve what we want to pretty much because of Jim Curtin. So Tanner throws Curtin under the bus, and Sugarman throws Tanner under the bus. But really what it came down to, and if you want to take the neutral approach, I'll give it to you, and then I'll give you both sides here, right? The neutral approach is that prior to the season, Ernst Tanner and Jim Curtin had a meeting. They laid out certain expectations of what they needed to happen this season in order for it to be considered a success, or essentially what the expectations were. And they did not meet those expectations, so Curtin was fired. It does tend to follow the narrative that Tanner wanted to remove Curtin, or has wanted to remove Curtin. But again, from Tanner's point of view, he says, we've been stagnating here. That's a direct quote. We've been stagnating here. And that's really what it came down to. So whether you think Curtin didn't play younger players enough, despite what Tanner said, like, I've built this academy system, we've got a great scouting network, we have homegrowns, we have academy players, we need to see them feature for the first team if the first team's not getting it done. Or whether you think that the ownership didn't spend enough money to give Curtin the players that he wanted. Curtin did not meet expectations. The first team did not meet expectations. In Tanner's words, they've been stagnating, so that is why Curtin is out. Now, what's interesting about the approach of you didn't play enough young players for us to evaluate, that is mostly because of the model that Philadelphia has built their club around, and it's almost like a Moneyball MLS model here, MLS Moneyball in Philly, where they are working on a very small budget. And again, there were people who were questioning that, like, well, if you're going to fire Curtin, why didn't you give him better players? Like, he's clearly a good coach. He's had success in the past, and now he's got one season where he doesn't make the playoffs, and he's out. Why didn't you give him better players? Well, their whole model is that they're going to run with a smaller budget. They're going to operate with a smaller budget. They're going to bring up academy players, homegrowns, people they've scouted, players they can bring in on a deal, sign cheaply, develop them, play them for a couple years, sell them off, reinvest the money into the academy, into the homegrowns, into signing those youth players from around MLS and USL, and just repeat and just kind of keep that cash cycle flowing, and then you sprinkle in some of your well-scouted DPs like a Leon Flock, like a Mikel Ura, like a Kai Wagner, or those kind of signings, those TAM-level signings that statistically will bear out over the course of a couple seasons and may not be like the most flashiest players watching them in one or two games. So that was their system. Curtin wanted more talented players, higher spending, bigger priced players, and the front office didn't want to change. And so Ernst Tanner put the fact that they have been stagnating on Jim Curtin and got the green light from owner Sugarman to relieve Curtin of his duties and fire him. So that's the backstory there. Now let's get into these MLS Cup playoffs, because wow, what a wild first round. In prior episodes, I've said, in general, over the course of a playoff series, the better and more talented team would likely win. But that's why they play the game. I still think as a general principle, that is the case, but oh my goodness, watching these three teams, there's something else going, or these three upsets, there's something else going on in the Eastern Conference. And we got to start with Miami being upset by Atlanta United. Now, what was different and what separates Atlanta United from that general statement that over the course of a series or a greater sample size, Miami would win? Maybe if they played 5 more games, Miami wins all 5 of them. But in this case, Atlanta might have been a better matchup for Miami, or against Miami, I guess, than any other team in MLS. I forget the exact statistic, but they're the one team that Inter Miami has not beaten when Messi plays a full 90. Atlanta has had a great record over their last 3 or 4 games, including the playoffs, 3, 4, 5 games against Inter Miami. And also, using hindsight, Miami probably came into this series, at the very least they came into this game 3, with the expectation of winning. And I don't mean confidence, we're going to go in and win. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion, borderline cockiness, that it's either going to be handed to them by MLS or the officiating, or Atlanta's just going to fold because they're so scared of this powerhouse team of Messi and co. But that wasn't the case at all, especially from Atlanta. And Atlanta came in to this series with the mentality of FEA. And we're playing with house money. And if you don't know what FEA stands for, go look up on some Atlanta United social media, because I'm not going to say it. It's definitely not G-rated. Go look that up. So it's not too much to say, though, in this case, that Atlanta United was playing with house money, to quote Dax McCarty and to quote the phrase, right? And they definitely came out, matched up well, and kept playing. And obviously you saw all the drama of Campana shoving Guzan and Suarez getting in his face, and then Miami just stopping playing when their player cramped up and goes down in their own box, even though Atlanta's attacking. And even then, like, there were 6 or 7 Miami defenders back and only 3 Atlanta United attackers, and still Sleesh runs through them and out jumps all of them and scores a beautiful goal to put Atlanta United up late. Like, that is totally on Miami there. And because Miami, of all the pomp and circumstance and all the expectations and the fact that they have won the League's Cup A trophy, they've won the Supporter Shield and set a points record, it's not too much to react to this as possibly the biggest upset in MLS Cup playoff history. Now, what reactions came out of that here, right? I want to look at the reaction of Miami defender Jordi Alba, because he might have had the worst reaction, but it's a complete summary of Inter Miami reaction here. He says, and I quote, "The format seems unfair. I would have the champion of one conference against the champion of the other to make it as fair as possible." End quote. Wow. Sour grapes. Definitely sour grapes. That's not something you say moments after you just completely flop on the field. Let me find my notes here, because I'm just so worked up over this. Again, the only blame can lie on the coaches and the players here. They're the ones that literally laid down when Atlanta was counterattacking to score that last goal. They're the ones that were more worried about yelling at the referee, about shoving and harassing Guzan, about making sure Messi didn't get fouled or anything like that, than actually playing the game. And by the way, a lot of people have pointed out, how does Miami not use Julian Gressel in any of this situation, in this clinching game here, in this game 3 win or go home situation? Where was he? Why was he sitting on the bench the whole time? So that's a criticism of the coaching. Now, to their coaching's credit, they got him back. They had 6, 7 guys behind the ball, and they just stopped playing. So I don't know about that. But if I'm the coach, if I'm Tata, I'm screaming, I am livid, I am going absolutely nuts against my players to get them motivated and still playing defense, or just playing at all. The other thing is, the whole idea of a 3-game series by MLS was to make sure that the better team advances, because as the general statement goes, the more opportunities you have to play, in the end, the better teams are going to advance. So the fact that Miami blew a 3-game series, and didn't just blow a 3-game series, they lost 2 straight to Atlanta. Remember, Miami won that first game, and then it was a foregone conclusion that they were just going to win one of the next 2, if not immediately the second game in Atlanta. Nope, Atlanta took it to them. Let's see, what else did I want to say about this? Also, I agree with the general reaction that it is really hard to like a team like Inter Miami, who has displayed the antics that these players have over the course of a season, especially highlighted in this final game. And I'm going to criticize Leo Messi here for a little bit, because he's rarely involved in those type of altercations, confrontations, trash talking, whatever it is, right? In this instance, he scores the goal. He goes to get the ball out of the back of the net because they want to win it. They don't want to go to PKs. It's tied 2-2. Guzan also goes after, Atlanta's goalkeeper, goes after the ball. They bump into each other. I don't think there was anything malicious there. Guzan doesn't give any sort of sideways glance to Messi, and Messi doesn't confront Guzan. He grabs the ball and leaves. So they bumped into each other, but that was interpreted by the rest of the Miami squad as Guzan taking a shot at Messi, which is, I think, why Campana goes up and shoves Guzan into the net, which, that's hard to get out of, man. He's like on a cargo net at some sort of ninja gym. But when he does get out of it, Suarez is in his face, jawing and ripping at him. And Guzan uses the net to, like, Spider-Man himself into Suarez's face. And I think Suarez realized just how big of a man Brad Guzan was at that point, because then he walked away shortly after that, and the referee, sadly, the referee was ripping on Guzan for escalating it, when it should have been clearly a yellow card to Campana and probably a yellow card to Suarez for escalating and for having all that extra drama. But to get back to my little criticism of Messi here, Messi just gets the ball and leaves. And you see him later on kind of saying, all right, let's calm down, let's calm down. But that's all after the fact. That's all after his, and I'll say it this way, that's all after his goons and his enforcers did his dirty work for him. He doesn't have to get his hands dirty because he's got Suarez and Campana and Alba and Busquets and anybody else out there who's willing to go draw yellow cards or go take shots at the other team in order to keep him safe. It is really hard, and I've seen this from neutral sites, I've seen this from national broadcasters, I've seen this on social media. It is hard for non-Messi fans to like Inter Miami, and it's even hard for some Messi fans to like Inter Miami because of all these kind of antics. And then it's even harder to like them when you have Tata Martino come on after the game and say, well, if it were us, we would have played the ball out when the opposing player got hurt. And in fact, they did that before. And like, first of all, the incident that he was referring to earlier on in the series, Inter Miami was playing the ball around probably 7 or 8 passes between the back line and the midfield, and when they realized they didn't have the opportunity to counterattack, then they played the ball out. Also, recall Messi chipping the ball over an RSL defender who was down on the ground to get a shot off. So don't believe Tata Martino in this. Don't believe his righteousness, indignation, whatever you want to call it, his high horse there. So that's my reaction to those reactions. The other reaction we're seeing is, oh, this is terrible for Major League Soccer. You've got Miami, Columbus, and Cincinnati, the 1, 2, 3 seeds, all out of the playoffs in the first round. This is terrible. It does show you the format is awful and shouldn't be this way. Who's going to watch these games anymore? Well, I'm telling you, that was exciting stuff in all of those games, even when these teams are getting upset. And you know what? Maybe you do lose a few eyeballs for people who just want to watch Messi, but those who were watching Messi, the whole point was to get them to see the rest of the league and to get them to know Major League Soccer. So if your marketing worked, MLS, then those people, in large part, are going to stick around and watch the rest of the playoffs, and that's what you want. So don't feel bad for Major League Soccer that, oh no, Messi's out, and also Columbus and Cincinnati, no one's going to be watching the playoffs anymore. I highly doubt that. Those people who are always going to be watching will always be watching, and those people who tuned in just to see Messi, a lot of them I think will stick around if MLS's marketing worked. Real quick, I just want to recap. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Orlando defeats Charlotte in their first round series because this was an Orlando team who was technically the higher seed. This was the 4-5 matchup. I think Orlando, not only them being the 4 seed, but they were the favorite. I think they were the better team on paper. This was the only favorite in the East to win their series, but my one takeaway with this, Facundo Torres is stepping up. I guess that's 2 takeaways. Facundo Torres is stepping up. But Duncan McGuire, I got a lot of respect for him because when he went down injured and drew the penalty kick that ultimately tied it up and sent the game to PKs late in stoppage time, I think it was like 90 plus 10 or something like that, he actually dislocated his shoulder. And if you want to go find the clip, go find the clip. I think it's still out there on MLSsoccer.com. But if he dislocates his shoulder, and I think he realizes, I can't stay down. I can't lay down here, wait for treatment, be subbed off, or be taken off the field, have to wait to come back in. That's going to kill clock. What if there's a PK? What if there is no PK? What if there is and it's a miss? Or I need to be on the field when it goes to a penalty shootout? All those sort of things. He gets up, holding his dislocated arm, jogs over to his athletic trainer, who pops his shoulder back into his socket, and then he runs back and takes the field again before the PK. Just an incredible moment for an athlete, I think, at least. That was something that I appreciated from Duncan McGuire. All right, we're going to take our halftime water break here on the show and remind everyone that Feed the Fire is sponsored by Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Icelandic for clear, Skira water comes from a spring in a government-protected nature preserve in Iceland with naturally low mineral content. This isn't your average water. Clearly, pun intended, it's one of the best. And Skira Icelandic Spring Water is available at your local 7-Eleven. Make sure you go pick up a bottle or 3 because you're going to need to stay hydrated for the rest of the single elimination playoffs. All right, we are now turning to the New York City-Cincinnati series, which was decided in PKs. And let me tell you, New York City had a really interesting season this season, and they saved their best for last. They ended the regular season on a 3-game win streak against Red Bulls, Cincinnati, and Nashville. They get their defense right during the course of this series against Cincinnati. Cincinnati team who, yes, has a very good defense and a very good goalkeeper, who was sorely missing Matt Miazga in this series, and in this final game especially. But a team that also is known for scoring goals, who can get you on the counterattack, who can score in bunches, who can score in a hurry, who, as Luca Oriano showed, can score from anywhere on the field. They held Cincinnati to 2 goals in this 3-game series. The first game, Cincinnati wins 1-0. Second game, New York City wins 3-1. Third game, 0-0 draw, goes to PKs, which New York City wins 6-5. And the big takeaway from that shootout was I've never seen 5 straight missed PKs. At first I was like, wow, this is crazy. Those 2 misses in the original 5 shots, both players shot over the bar. I never saw that. I never would expect to see a player from one team shoot high, the next player comes up, shoots high. But to see 5 straight misses, that was absolutely wild. But it does show how good the quality of goalkeeping is in MLS and is on these 2 teams. It was awesome to watch Ramon Celentano and Matt Freese just dominate and take over these kind of PKs shootouts. And I'm finding myself now like cheering more for the keepers in a lot of these. If I have no vested interest in who wins the game, I'm cheering for the keepers to make some saves. You know, I have turned away from the goal scorer in me to like the coach, the drama, the chaos of seeing the goalkeepers come up with big saves. One other little note about this game, a little personal note here. This game finished when it was my family movie night. We get the kids together either Friday night or Saturday night, end of the week. You know, we'll order something, we'll make popcorn, and it's family movie night. And we all rotate who picks the movie. And the night of the New York City-Cincinnati game, it was my wife's turn to pick the movie. And she's like, okay, fine, just finish the shootout, and then we'll put my movie on. And then the shootout went for like 9 rounds. And every time there was a miss or a make that kept it going, like the kids and I were just laughing hysterically and cheering for more. When someone would miss, we're like, the next person's got to miss or have it saved. We need this to keep going because it's so funny just watching my wife like, when am I going to watch my movie now? So we had a good time with that, and God bless my wife. And also happy anniversary to my wife, November 11th, our beautiful anniversary, 12 years married now. She did wait patiently, and we enjoyed the rest of the shootout. She got into it. She's getting into MLS more. I'm winning her over slowly, but we had a lot of fun with that one. And then, of course, the final Eastern Conference upset. We talked about Red Bulls defeating the Crew in 2 straight games. We talked about it in prior episodes. I'm not going to rehash it too much. But looking at the general trends here in the playoffs, like parity definitely is a factor in MLS. You're seeing clubs and organizations understand how to build competitive rosters, whether it's through TAM and GAM signings, whether it's through a bunch of DP signings, whether it's through the homegrown system. There's different ways to do it, but clubs are starting to figure it out. And if you have good synchronization between your ownership, your front office, your coaching staff, and players, then you can build a solid first team and be competitive and make the playoffs and pull these upsets off. And if you look for a team like Miami, who was hitting on all cylinders all season, who had kind of these expectations and couldn't match the expectations, they forgot to play the game, they were worried about other stuff. You look at a team like Columbus, who played so many games this season, they kind of just limped into this first round playoff series here, and Red Bull just came at them and took full advantage of it. And you start to get familiarity with some of these clubs, and there's a little bit of an unknown element in these playoff matches. And then when you look at New York City and Cincinnati, New York City was getting hot at the right time, came in with a solid defensive plan as well. So not just parity, but again, you're getting better built teams, you're getting better coaches, but there's still, to me, there's still that X factor, that unknown variable that pops up, that could pop up in any playoff series. And honestly, it's a lot of fun, and I'm really enjoying it. So looking forward, in the conference semifinals, which again, we're now into single elimination mode, which I agree it should be single elimination, but man, I kind of want another 3-game series after what we just witnessed. Looking forward to the single elimination conference semis. On November 23rd, we have New York City hosting New York Red Bulls. This will be at Citi Field, I believe. That's at 4:30 p.m. And then LAFC are hosting Seattle at 9 p.m. The following day, November 24th, Orlando City hosting Atlanta United at 2:30 p.m. And then the Galaxy will be hosting Minnesota United at 5 p.m. Again, those times are central because we're here in Chicago. To wrap up the show, I want to recap the USMNT's roster for their upcoming Nations League match against Jamaica. This is the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Nations League. They are playing November 18th at 7 p.m. Central down at City Park in St. Louis, Missouri. Here's their roster, starting from the back. Goalkeepers, Diego Cochen, FC Barcelona Athletic in Spain. Patrick Schulte, Columbus Crew. Zach Steffen, Colorado Rapids. And Matt Turner, Crystal Palace over in England. So it looks to me like Diego Cochen is kind of your young guy. I don't know how old he is, but he's kind of the young guy that they want to bring into camp and kind of be like, maybe not the next cycle, but the next cycle, as having some continuity and having someone with that experience there. That's something I think we see from a lot of national teams, where the third or fourth goalkeeper in your pool is typically the young up-and-comer who is going to kind of have some consistency and maybe compete in the next World Cup cycle. But if that is the case, I would have loved to see Gaga Slonina or Chris Brady there. Don't know what Slonina's club situation, if they would have released him, but we know Chris Brady ain't playing right now. It would have been great to see him there. But he's had no experience with the senior team outside of some Olympic camps, I think. So it's not surprising that Pochettino hasn't called him up. But hopefully someone puts Chris Brady's name in his ear. I'm looking at this as Zach Steffen trying to fight back into the starting contention. We've seen Patrick Schulte start for the U.S. on a few occasions, and Matt Turner as well recently. So to me, if I'm inside Pochettino's head, I think I'm seeing that Turner's your starter, Schulte's your backup. Can Steffen fight his way into starting conversation, and will Diego Cochen kind of be your... Can he hang for the next cycle kind of a thing? Is he really going to pan out as the next goalie? Looking across the back line, the defenders called in: Mark McKenzie, who's in Toulouse in France; Tim Ream, Charlotte FC; Chris Richards of Crystal Palace; Anthony Robinson of Fulham; Miles Robinson, Cincinnati; Joe Scally, Borussia Mönchengladbach; and Austin Trusty of Celtic. So we've got a number of players here who have tons of experience. Tim Ream, 64 caps. Anthony Robinson, 48 caps. Miles Robinson, 30. And we're starting to see a little bit more consistency and some more familiarity with this back line. McKenzie, 15 caps. I think he was recently on the squad for their last game. Joe Scally, 17 caps as well. Chris Richards, 23 caps. So I think Pochettino likes his English experience there. And all of these guys have overseas experience other than Miles Robinson. And Miles Robinson, we know, had the opportunity, I think, to go play in these big European leagues, but for his injury prior to the last World Cup. Austin Trusty with Celtic getting a little chance to show he can stay in the mix. Only 3 caps to his name. So we're starting to see Pochettino identify, I think, a few of these defenders who are going to be solid pieces and continuous pieces for him moving forward. In the midfield, we've got 8 midfielders called in. Brendan Aronson of Leeds United, Gianluca Busio of Venezia, Johnny Cardoso, Real Betis, Weston McKennie, Juventus, Aidan Morris, Middlesbrough, Yunus Musa, AC Milan, Tanner Tessman of Olympique Lyon in France, and Malik Tillman, PSV Eindhoven. Now, some names here, like Malik Tillman is having a great run right now with PSV. Obviously, Weston McKennie and Juventus are playing well. Yunus Musa and AC Milan are playing well. So those guys, I would imagine, are going to be the starters here. Now, a lot of people are saying what happened to Tyler Adams. He's back with Bournemouth. He's playing. Why isn't he in camp? Pochettino did address that and say they wanted to give him a little extra time to heal, to get to be 100%, because he sees Tyler Adams as a player they are going to need to rely a lot on for the World Cup in 2026. So he's already got an eye on that, which is great to see, that he's not just coming in and seeing who's going to work. He already is formulating his roster for 2026, and we can expect a healthy, fingers crossed, knock on wood here, a healthy Tyler Adams would be a big part of that. It is great to see a guy like Aidan Morris, who's only got 9 caps, Tanner Tessman, who's got 4, to be in the mix here. Can Gianluca Busio be more than the Gold Cup Nations League midfielder? Can he elevate his game to compete, say, with Aidan Morris, Yunus Musa, or Brendan Aronson, guys who have World Cup experience or first team big tournament aspirations and experience there? So that's what I would look to see out of this midfield. We've seen it with national teams in the past. You've got your World Cup team, your trophy winning team, and then you've got kind of your B and C squads that you can roll out for qualifiers that you can, or mix in for qualifiers that you can roll out for, say, a Gold Cup early on game or something like that. So is Gianluca Busio going to elevate himself to that level of potentially being called in for the World Cup, or is he just going to be the Nations League Gold Cup kind of a guy? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's something I'm looking for here. 6 forwards called into camp: Cade Cowell from Chivas Guadalajara, Ricardo Pepe from PSV Eindhoven, Christian Pulisic, AC Milan, Brandon Vasquez of Monterrey, Tim Weah, Juventus, and Alex Zendejas of Club America. So, again, we talked about the 2 Italian teams that the Americans are on playing very well. Yeah, same thing here. Pulisic and Weah. Pulisic just on fire with AC Milan. Tim Weah is having a really hot streak right now himself. So I would imagine those are going to be your starting left and right wingers. And it's just a matter of who's up top. Is it Pepe? Is it Vasquez? Or is it Zendejas? And I would say at this point it is Pepe because of his form at PSV Eindhoven right now. They're on a good run and some continental play. Nice to see Alex Zendejas get another shot. I think he really carried himself well in that game against Mexico. Really kind of was the one guy who was fighting back. So I appreciate that being recognized and seeing him called in. You know, I haven't watched a lot of Cade Cowell down in Guadalajara, and also I know Brandon Vasquez has kind of tailed off a little bit from his initial good run of form when he started with Monterrey, but is now, you know, in the mix with Florin Balogun out injured, with, I think, Haji Wright and Josh Sargent also injured. So 3 guys who would be in the mix, all injured, and now it's time for Cowell and for Zendejas and for Vasquez to take advantage of that opportunity. Well, with that, we are going to wrap up for the evening. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. Make sure you follow along on social media at Glasshouse Soccer on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Email me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com. And as always, let's go Fire. And let's go USA.